Hi, guys. Welcome to tonight's live chat. Welcome. I'm glad to see you. I am sorry I had to push the live chat back, I think 5 minutes. I totally lost track of time. As a matter of fact, let me grab some water. Hold on, then we'll jump in. I swear, I never learn to grab things that I'm going to need ahead of time. I keep doing the same thing over and over and over, expecting a different result. So it looks like on my side, everything is good. I don't see any Instagram challenges. So let's go ahead and jump into this conversation. This conversation, I think, is going to, oh, geez, hold on, guys. Instagram is yelling again. Hold on. Let me put Instagram in touch with us. Um, excuse me, so that we can actually have a live chat with Instagram as well tonight. Give me 1 second as we do this. This live chat, I'm going to talk you through this as I hook up Instagram. This live chat, I think, is going to be rather interesting because I think a lot of you can relate to the reality of family bullying. If you were to type in the title in Google, family bullying, you know what you're going to come up with? You're going to see domestic violence. You're also going to see toxic family information or information on toxic families. You are also going to see sibling rivalry. And you may even see information on childhood bullying. You're not necessarily going to see information specifically on family bullying. Let me welcome these viewers on Instagram. I'm just going to say hello and welcome. Come join us. Okay, we're good to go, guys. I apologize for that. But family bullying is not a term that is well established. It is also not well supported in the research. One of the reasons why is because when we identify relational bullying within a family, we tend to kind of sweep that under the heading of relational intimidation, relational violence. We tend to kind of sweep it under toxic family behavior. We sweep it under domestic violence. But family bullying can actually mean a variety of things, which I'm going to highlight in tonight's live chat for you guys, that family bullying can truly consist of specific criteria, specific behaviors, patterns of behavior that can really cause you to feel bullied, intimidated, and harassed, right? There's a lot that can go on in your mind. There's a lot that can go on in your heart. There's a lot that can go on in your world as you are being bullied, harassed, and intimidated by your family that can leave you feeling very vulnerable, abandoned, and unloved for a very long time. So I'm going to tease apart some of what family bullying actually is, what the research says. And I also want to give you information on what actually happens to you, because there's an emotional and psychological process that you go through, as you're experiencing family bullying. Now, let me just say before I start throwing some terms out there, and then I'm going to go check on you guys and engage you. Let me just say that when you are in a family dynamic that is toxic and dysfunctional, and you begin to feel as if you are being intentionally intimidated, and we can call that family bullying. If you feel like that's what's going on with you, then there's this idea that as you begin to view your family as not very supportive, we basically call it low perceived family support. Low perceived family support, meaning that your perception of your family is you have little support in your life, you have little support with your family. Research suggests that, and some of the research studies that have been done on this suggest that if you perceive low support within your family and you continue to perceive that over a long duration of time while experiencing negative thoughts, feelings, and reactions, that the likelihood of you becoming depressed, overly anxious, obsessive, fearful. What's another thing that I need to add in here? Kind of really feeling boxed in by the world, not feeling like you have a specific safe place in the world can happen to you. And that is because family bullying, family intimidation, some people even go so far as to call it family mobbing, whatever title you give it. It's a process where there is low perceived family support. There's a lot of what we call a personality pathology, meaning that there's a sickness in quotation marks within that person's character or personality that contributes to what you're already feeling, right? So let's say, for example, I just had a client today, and we were actually talking about a story in the news where, there's a mom, there's a dad, there's twins, two twins, both are 21 years old. Mom and dad sound like narcissists just by the way that the news story kind of unfolded their life and the money that they have and the places that they travel and things like that. But my client and I today were talking about this, and she's like, I think my dad is a narcissist, but I don't want to sound like everybody else in the world who says, you know what, that's a narcissist, that's a narcissist, that's a narcissist. Excuse me. And I said, yeah, I totally understand that. But do you think your dad's a narcissist? What gives you that impression? And she says, over the many years that she has known her dad, he's never left them. Has he had affairs? Yes. Has he, gambled away over 22 grand? Yes. He's done a lot of things to their family, including having multiple affairs at a time, sometimes several different affairs within an entire week span. Imagine that. You're having various encounters with women in 7 days. Okay, that's not okay. So, he's done a lot of damage to their love as a family, to their trust, to just the connection between them as a family. And I said, okay, I can kind of see based on what you've told me that, yeah, your dad may be a narcissist. And so she says, is that what you call a personality pathology? And I said, wow, you must really be watching my channel. And I said to her, I said, yeah, that's a personality pathology. Having a narcissistic way that you perceive the world, that you act within the world, that's a personality pathology. And it's a personality pathology because it doesn't align with what a quote unquote healthier, we'll put it that way, healthier individual would be in the world. And so his way of living is wayward. His way of living is harmful. It's abusive. It's unhealthy. And we, got to this place where in our conversation, she said, you know what? The older I got, and I'm mentioning this because I think you guys can relate to this. She says, the older I got, the less control I felt that I had in the family and the less family support I felt I had. And then she turns to me and she says, Tamara, do you think that's why I have symptoms of PTSD? Is this why I feel like I may have a complex PTSD? And I'm like, okay, wait a minute. I'm the therapist here. So let me pace this conversation. You're not going to do this to me right here on the spot because I'm not, So I made it out of a joke with her. But, is she making a very good point? Yes. She, we can't in the United States diagnose complex PTSD. You can only diagnose complex PTSD, complex post-traumatic stress disorder, if you are using the ICD, okay? Bear with me, guys. The ICD is the International Classification of Disorders. It's another manual. I don't have my DSM down here. No, I don't have my DSM. Yes, I do. Okay, I'm going to show this to you for those of you who want to see it and may not know what it is. So this is the DSM, okay? It's the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual. Some people call it a Bible because it looks that way. It's far from that, but we're going to go with it, right? So, okay. She says, do you think this is why I have complex PTSD symptoms, because again, I can't diagnose her using the DSM. So I said, yeah, I think that's why you have such unstable relationships. We'll put it that way. And there's a reaction to relationships that kind of aligns with the criteria of complex PTSD. You know, there's a fear of abandonment. There's kind of like this repeated traumatic experience. There's this fight or flight mode that the body goes into the minute a relationship is discussed, or if something is happening between, you know, two people. Sometimes that can be, okay, I like you, and the other person may say I like you as well, but I'm terrified. Why? Because of relational trauma. So this is what she's gone through. Hence the reason why she's still in therapy with me. It's been 5 years, you know, but I bring all of that up to say that you may identify complex PTSD happening in your own very world because of family bullying, because of that intimidation process that you have to go through. Complex PTSD in the ICD, International Classification of Disorders, excuse me, in that manual, okay, there's a set criteria for complex PTSD. And you may find that you have very poor executive functioning. You may have a very poor or limited attention span. You may have these deep-seated feelings of you know, a fear of being abandoned by somebody. You may have your defense walls way up over your head because you don't trust anyone, right? You may have these experiences where, you know, you're kind of reenacting a traumatic situation from the past in a present situation. So an example of that briefly would be, you know, maybe you had a terrible childhood and then you got into a terrible relationship with a guy or a woman, and you got into another bad relationship and you married an abusive person. And so all of those traumatic relationships then kind of cause you to think all relationships may be that way. All of these symptoms, guys, in a nutshell, I'm bringing all of this up to say that you may find yourself in a state of complex symptoms, complex PTSD like symptoms, just like my client, you know? One last thing before I go to the chat box, because I see you guys chatting it up and I'm like, oh God, this is a topic I probably should have went to bed early on, because it's something I think that a lot of people can relate to, right? So let me bring this up as well. So there's a term, when you start to research family bullying, there is a term that is usually nicely placed into paragraphs of clinical articles. You're not going to find this just by Googling it. But the term is family emotional violence. Family emotional violence. This happens in families where you're being bullied. Happens in families where you are being bullied, intentionally harassed, intentionally intimidated. We're going to get into this and what these actually mean in a little bit here. But in family emotional violence, what happens is the individual or variety of family members who are bullying you and harassing you, they tend to engage in controlling. They tend to engage in isolating you, because if they isolate you and make you feel trapped, they have more power over you, right? Because really, if you think about the psychology of intimidation, it's to get you in a mindset where you don't feel empowered, where you don't feel capable, where you don't feel strong. And when you psychologically don't measure up, right, to the task in front of you, then you kind of say, you know what? It's kind of like a I give up kind of disposition. Or if you're like me, you'll fight back with all you have and exhaust yourself, you know? Or you may find yourself kind of succumbing or giving into that psychological isolation and control. But there's, again, controlling, there's isolation, and there's also this causing of fear, right? You can't have someone bully you and you not be afraid. If we look at the definition of bullying, okay, whether that's within a family or children on a schoolyard, playground, whatever, the word that is constantly put in the definition of bullying is intimidation. So that's all you need, you know? If you're being intimidated wherever you are, and somebody is intentionally intimidating you in order to trigger fear, in order to trigger mayhem, whatever, that is the goal. And so that can keep you stuck. Let me also mention here before I go to the chat box that you may also find within the dynamic of family bullying this behavioral pattern that we call shape shifting, or a shape shifter can be a family member who loves you, supports you, gives you all the love and support and affection that you need. But the minute they are in front of that other family member who's bullying you, harassing you, intimidating you, guess what? They shift, right? And so we call that a shape shifter, excuse me. Or we can just, call it shape shifting, right? In that situation where they may love you with all their heart, but don't get them around Grandma Bobo over there, because Grandma Bobo, if she says something's right, I've great grandparents like this. If she says something is right, you better believe she's right, right? Grandma has a certain level of power in the family. So if grandma's going against you, I better go against you too. So I'm just going to go over here and be with grandma. And so in a more serious sense, because I'm being a little bit silly, but in a serious sense, right, we can call that a shapeshifter. We can. It's a change in role. It's a change in personality, depending on the situation that you're in, right? Get Kevin over there, get Uncle Kevin over there to get in front of Grandma Bobo, and he's going to treat you like dirt. Move Grandma Bobo out of the way and put you guys in a situation where it's just the two of you, you're going to get along. And so family bullying has a number of dynamics. And I'm just going to self-disclose here, okay, and say, even as a therapist with 15 years of experience at almost every level of the field, this is hard. When they come into my practice and I identify on paper that now I'm dealing with a family where there's family bullying, there's family intimidation, there's shapeshifters in here, there's family emotional violence, there's a lot of different dynamics. I just sit there and I'm like, oh my God, I don't know. Can I handle another case like this, And it's because there's so many levels, okay? And the levels just stack, So, okay, let me go to the chat box. Let me welcome you. I see you guys chatting it up. I know you're relating to this. Bear with me, guys. I have quite a few things to get through here. Justice, hello, and welcome to tonight's live chat. I'm always glad to see you. Justice says, I can't take it anymore. They have messed with my brain so much that I can't concentrate from one moment to the next. And I feel, oh, I should have looked away. I'm sorry. And I feel like I'm losing my mind, or that I have brain damage from all the trauma. Oh my, Justice, I'm so sorry to hear that. It sounds more like an urgent, if I'm reading correctly between the lines, it sounds like this urgent, I'm tired, I got to get out of this, And so if you don't already, and I know it's not for everybody, but if you don't already, I say a really skilled therapist can help give you some foundation, because when you're in your head, right, you've got all the static and you're in your heart, right, and you feel pain, you need somebody else that is really skilled that can say, you know what, you don't have to tell me everything. I understand you, and let me help you. So if that's something that you can do, I really suggest that. Otherwise, I'm glad you're on the channel. Hopefully something will be said tonight that can be helpful. Brianne D, hello and welcome. Glad to have you in tonight's live chat. Thank you for the super chat. Always appreciate that. And thank you for becoming a member of the channel. I'm so grateful. Thank you. Brianne D says, and hopefully I'm saying your name correctly, says, I know you're a very busy woman, Tamara. I just wanted to let you know that I did send an email. I hope I sent it to the right one. Okay, I'm going to check my email tonight. I literally have to schedule when I can check my email. That's just how jam-packed my schedule is, but I certainly will look. Jay Nash, hello, welcome. Glad to have you in tonight's live chat, and welcome to the channel. I don't remember seeing you. I'm sorry that you have been through that. Yes, it can feel like that, right? Sun and Sunflowers, hello and welcome. Glad to see you. Thank you for the positivity. I hope you have a peaceful weekend as well. We need it, right? Elizabeth, hello and welcome. Glad to see you in tonight's live chat. Bear with me as I get through some of this because I see some really good comments. God is love. Hello and welcome. Glad to see you, and thank you for lifting up Justice. That's so wonderful how you guys just jump in, I love that. Mary Cruz, hello and welcome. Here you are. Glad to see you and welcome to the channel. I don't ever remember seeing you. Leslie Stern, hello and welcome. She says, my screen says live on January 11th in 24 hours. Is this just me? I hope it's just you, or did I schedule two things at the same time? I don't know. It's for tonight. Tomorrow is post separation abuse. So you're going to want to see that one as well tomorrow. But it could be YouTube. I don't know. Thank you for pointing that out. Tammy, nicely, good to see you. I did get your email response. I just haven't been able to get back to you. Thank you for being flexible. Hope you're doing well. Give it a think. Hello and welcome. Good to see you as well. Ronald Zion, Kyra Knows, Raymond Vincent Garcia Jr. Hello. Welcome to all of you. Glad to see you. Okay, I'm looking for comments. Francis. Okay, I'm going to mess this up. I've already messed it up in my own head. I'm going to say Francophile Poutine. I apologize. Please correct me because I know I'm wrong. Welcome. Glad to see you. Bonjour to you. Glad to have you. Michelle Lynn, hello and welcome. Glad to see you tonight as well. Good to see you. Kay Razy, hello and welcome. Thank you for the positivity. Glad to see you. Star Ronald Zion. And Ryder, hello to all of you. Welcome, welcome. Ryder says, good timing, Tamara. Just dealing with my domineering family member. I need some encouragement. Yes, absolutely. When you have a domineering family member, you know, doesn't it just make you want to say, you know what? You know, you kind of have to be wise with how you talk to them, because dominating and dominating and controlling family members will then create a triangle, right? And they'll go run to another family member and say, can you believe Tamara said that? She must not be getting enough sleep because she said A, B, and C about me, and I'm not about to deal with this. You know, do you think you can talk to her? You know, so you do have to kind of be careful how you approach dominating family members, but don't you just want to say, you know what, back up, please. I'm an adult. You're an adult. Can we just find some way to communicate in a better way? You know, that would be helpful, right, Ryder? Juby Joe, hello, welcome. Always glad to see you. Kyra Knows says, a man's enemies will be of his own household, says the Lord. Yeah, that is a scripture, isn't it? And, you know, when you look at that passage, you know, you read the passage before and after that particular scripture verse or passage, you're just like, oh my God. You know, this actually makes sense. Somebody said to me, and I'm going to share this before I go back to the chat box, and then we're going to really jump in. But someone said to me the other day, they're like, I feel like it's ungodly that you highlight that families can be traumatic and toxic. And they were like, I just believe families should stay together at all costs. And I came at that like you wouldn't believe. But I said in a very professional and gracious way that, you know, maybe you should go back over the Bible. Go ahead and take that second or third view, because there's a lot of verses in the Bible that really does support the idea that sometimes you just have to separate. And that doesn't make you evil. That doesn't make you problematic. That doesn't make you cursed by God. It is a reality that we are humans and sometimes we have to separate. And as Kyra Knows points out in the passage that she shared with us tonight, sometimes your very own enemies will be right in your very own space. And you need to be able to see that and run, right? I'm glad you put that up there. Thank you so much for that. RNMJ Nurse Chronicles. I think I may have messed that up. Forgive me. Hello and welcome. Glad to see you. They say, hello, Tamara. It's been a while, but super excited to see you. Good to see you too. Thank you again for this bowl of understanding and psychological wealth. Well of wealth. Oh, you're welcome. That's humbling. Thank you so much for saying that. Starburst. Hello and welcome. Good to see you tonight. Orlando. Did I say hello to you? If not, welcome. Always glad to see you. Give It a Think says, yes, rejected, shamed and blamed. It is very helpful. Thank you for that. Guys, you may want to take that down. I agree. It's a good book. Thank you for saying that. Okay, I'm going to move on. You guys can always play this back and get that book. It is a good book. I agree. Clandestine Girl 16X. If I messed it up, I apologize. Hello and welcome. And you're welcome. So glad this is helpful. Jessica J. Good to see you. Yes. Happy New Year to you as well. Happy New Year. Yeah. Good to see you back. Earthworm JXM. Yeah. You're going to learn some new terms tonight, guys. I've already dropped a couple. Hello and welcome. Good to see you as well. Okay. Let me just scan this chat box really quickly, and then we're going to go ahead and jump in. AM, good to see you. Yes, sometimes there are ads on our live chats now. Can you believe that? Sometimes YouTube will interrupt the live chat just to give you an ad. Some live chats, I do go in, I go through what I'm doing in my box when I'm trying to put together like the description and the title and all of that. Sometimes I will say no ads at all, so bear with me. I can always go back and remove those. I apologize for that. Fairy girl, hello and welcome. Good to see you as always. Okay, let's jump back in. I'm going to get to the rest of you because I saw a lot of super chats. I saw a lot of comments. Let's get through some of this. Okay, guys, before we get into common behaviors of family bullies, let me mention a new term as well, and it's called suboptimal parenting. Now, yesterday I posted a really brief video on Machavellian parents of adult children and even young children too, underage children. And parents that have a Machiavellian disposition or personality trait, they tend to be very sadistic. They like to get the pot stirred. They like to engage in parental alienation. They like to engage in alienating their children from other people in the family. They have a very sadistic edge to them. In this particular conversation tonight, we can kind of call it suboptimal parenting. And that is basically problematic parenting or parenting that has a major impact on the configuration, the development of personality. So let's say, for example, you were raised in a household, you were raised in a household where, okay, dad's a psychopath. Okay, he's cold, callous. He does things intentionally to get on people's nerves. He doesn't like to follow the rules. He has a very cold and callous and cynical disposition with almost everybody in the world, including your family. So that's your dad. Your mom may be very narcissistic and self-consumed, right? She thinks she's great. She thinks she's cute. She loves the way she talks. She has this disposition that says, I'm everything you're ever going to want to be. Okay. So those are two very unhealthy parents. Let's say you came out of that okay. Your brother may not have. And so because of the suboptimal parenting, which is really a psychological term for bad parenting, because of their bad parenting, you may have escaped, your brother may not have. And so the bad parenting that he was under for so many years has configured, shaped, and molded his personality. And so he may now be a psychopath. He may now be a dark empath. He may now be a narcissist, right? Because of the bad parenting that you guys were under. And sometimes it happens like that. You can bring twins into this world. And depending on what the parenting consists of, will determine if twin 1 or twin 2 is going to come out a certain way, right? In addition to genes and biology. And so sometimes that really bad parenting can cause a configuration of personality that is really difficult for that person to get out of. And so you may find yourself in a situation, this is my reason for mentioning this, you may find yourself in a situation where your brother is just as much of a bully as your dad. And your dad is just as much of a bully as your mom. And so there you are in this unit of bullies, and you're trying to figure out, how do I kind of maneuver myself out of this? Some people feel really trapped. I had back in 2018, I had a full caseload, over 50 clients in my practice at the time. It's, shifted a lot after COVID, let me tell you. But at the time in 2018, I had 50 cases I was carrying. And every last one of those cases included suboptimal parenting, bad parenting. It also included a dynamic where there was one child, a parent in the situation where they were considered the quote unquote stable ones, and the others were considered the family bullies, the intimidators, you know? So you want to keep that in mind as well. Sometimes that bad parenting can shape the behavior of a sibling in a way that it hasn't shaped your behavior. And so there you are with a sibling who is just as much of a bully as your parents. Now, what are the common behaviors in families where there's bullying going on? Well, let's start with constant monitoring. Research in psychology suggests that helicopter parents, constant supervision, right, not giving privacy, really not affording the child, the adolescent, the adult child, the space to think and breathe and develop over time. All of that can be defined as constant monitoring. And it really does feel like psychological surveillance, right? Because you don't have any room to breathe. I had a client last year. I felt so bad for her. She was the cutest little thing, 10 years old. And I get the kids should not keep their doors closed at all times, right? Because it's kind of putting them in a position to be harmed or to start doing things behind your back or get into some things. And sometimes it's just good to keep their door open. But I had this sweet 10-year-old last year, and, she was going through a lot of trauma. She was adopted and just feeling really broken and hurt. And she would cry sometimes. And all she needed was that safe place, right? To kind of cry and get her emotions out and process. And her adopted mom, the family that had adopted her mom says, you're going to keep your door open at all times. And, they're in my office and, the 10-year-old says, but why? And she says, because I don't trust you being in your room with your door closed. And she says, but Mom, whenever I'm in those moments, I just need to go somewhere and just be by myself. Well, you can be by yourself with the door open, And I said, well, what about if she cracks the door? We got to give a little bit here. And Mom says, we can maybe try that. And she says, but, I'm going to knock. When I see your door pushed up, I'm going to knock and see what's going on with you. Constant monitoring. It is unnecessary. And it can very much feel like abuse at certain points, right? It can feel like neglect at certain points. It can feel like you're not being given the space to process, So constant monitoring. The other thing is relying on, other family members' knowledge of you to kind of inform how they should treat you. That's the best way that I could put this. In a family where there's family bullying, the person in the family with the power, that could be Grandma Bo that I mentioned earlier. It could be your dad. It could be a rich uncle, whatever. Somebody that has power in your family can then be the person that everybody runs to get kind of like this perception of you. And that can feel very much intimidating, right? And it can very much put you in a position where you feel like you're being bullied, right? The other thing is kind of prying for information, right? What are you doing over there? Who's that person you are with? Oh, I saw you changed your work status online. Where are you working now? How long have you guys been dating? Are you getting married? It's too soon to get married. What are you doing? Oh, don't do that, right? You guys know what I'm talking about. Prying, questions, constant, a barrage of things thrown at you. And it feels worse, I think, when it's holiday time and you go into this realm of wolves, right? And they're all just around you. Like, I need some information. And it can make you just feel so overwhelmed, right? The other piece of this is kind of, what's the word I want to use here? Kind of searching for your weaknesses, They do that a lot. Playing on your weakness. That's what I'm trying to say. Playing on your weakness, right? Figuring out where your buttons are and pushing them every chance that they get. Why? Because a family bully does what? They psychologically and emotionally intimidate, and sometimes even physically as well, right? So intimidation is the key here. So are they going to play on your weaknesses? 100%. 100%. You may also notice relational aggression. So there's a lot of indirect communication. There's a lot of posting of social media messages that are harmful. There's a lot of going behind your back and spreading rumors and things that are not true. There's a lot of going behind your back and kind of building an alliance. I'm just going to team up with the grandparents here, and we're going to all go against you. I'm going to team up with my sister over there, and we together are going to go against you. So building those alliances, that can also be a part of relational aggression. There's also, I think I may have said this earlier, there's psychological intimidation. So kind of dropping things in your subconscious, right? Dad never really thought that you were the smart one in the family. Another thing that I've heard in sessions in the past would be, you know what? I don't know what it is, but Dad always saw you as the rebellious one. I was the good girl, you were the bad girl. Psychologically dropping things into your subconscious. Another thing could be, I always got the good grades and you didn't. So, no wonder Dad put me in charge of his estate. That's another thing. So this can happen a lot, right? Shaming and blaming and pointing out things. It's all psychological manipulation, Domination, that's another thing. I need to be on top. I need to get on you and make you feel like you have absolutely nowhere to go, because again, you will crumble under that pressure and you become, the harassed, if you will. You become kind of vulnerable. You become a victim in a sense, right? Limited love and affection is another thing. I tend to be a very loving, touchy-feely person, whereas I've seen some parents, however, who are like, no. I may have shared this on a previous live chat with you guys, but I had a client 3 years ago, 15, just lost. She didn't know who she was, didn't know who she wanted to be, didn't know what she wanted to do, just suffering, right? She had like an existential crisis is what I call it. It's like, who am I? What am I? Where am I? How should I see me? Is there a God? Is there not a God? And if there isn't, why do I think there, all those questions, right? And she broke down in tears. And, I'm trying to talk her through the session. Mom is also on the couch with her. And I'm talking to her through the session. I see tears welling up in her eyes. I see tears dropping. I say, it's okay. It's going to be okay. I can't promise you that. But I think with your level of determination, I think it's going to be okay for you. And, she's nodding and she's crying more. And, she looks at her mom. And she goes to lean her head on her mom's shoulder. And guess what mom does? Mom does this, like, nope, don't touch me. Don't touch me. And she does this, she's like, I don't like to be touched, And my heart just trembled because her child needed her to reassure her with love that it's going to be okay. But she was like, nope, don't touch me, So limited or absolutely no love and affection can also be considered psychological manipulation. It can be considered psychological and emotional abuse in some states. Can you believe that? And I think we can call it family bullying too if it continues in a very detrimental way, because it can get worse than just don't touch me. Let me also say these kind of family members also tend to be reward dependent, meaning that, they have to do something to you in order to feel good about themselves. So reward dependent family members who are bullying, what do? Well, they do something to you over and over and over again, because every time they do that thing with you, it gives them this reward. They feel empowered, they feel important, they feel strong, right? The other is novelty seeking. Sometimes family bullies are just straight up bored, right? They have nothing better to do with their time. They don't have a life. Sometimes they just sit and get high all day or get drunk all day, or they're on their TikToks or Instagrams all day doing much of nothing. And so they're bored. And so what do? Well, they look for somebody to kind of hurt, to harm, to make their life interesting. And so these kind of individuals may find it really convenient to bully you within the family, right? I've heard of situations where, there's family members who are on disability, on government assistance, and they don't do anything. They just kind of stay at home and away from the world, but they will get on social media. This was a client I had years ago. They will get on social media and just completely bad talk family members, harass, make threats. She was making really intense threats online. I mean, to a point where I had to have a wellness check done. Meaning I called the police. I said, I think this client here needs to be seen. I'm a little bit worried. But she was saying things like, I'm going to bomb this place. I know how to make a bomb from home. I'm going to hurt this person. And here's their first and last name. This is the last time you're ever going to hear from them. And she was just straight up bored. She needed a job. She needed something to do. She needed to really make her life meaningful. And what does she do in the place of not having a meaningful life? She threatened everybody, and she created so much chaos online. So these are common behaviors. Now, let me say this before I go back to the chat box, and then I'm going to tell you how this impacts you over time, because you're going to want to know, am I experiencing this? Have I experienced it? And are these my set of behaviors because of this, But before I go to the chat box, let me just say research suggests that there are very intense, lasting effects of family bullying. So if you are intimidated within your family, you feel bullied within your family, you feel harassed, there's lasting consequences here for you. Now, you can move through them throughout your life, and you can overcome them, excuse me, a little at a time. But it is possible that you can live with this for a very long time. 1 second, guys. This is what happens when you talk too much. Excuse me. So research suggests these lasting consequences. Eating disorders. That was number one in some of the research I looked up. Eating disorders. You may be asking, what? Why eating disorder? Here's why. Some theories around anorexia and bulimia is if you don't have control in your family, and if you don't have control over certain situations in your life, the one thing you do have control over is what goes in, right? What I'm eating, what I'm purging, what I'm binging with, right? That's kind of like the only control for some people. So research suggests that eating disorders can become a consequence of growing up in a family where there's family intimidation and bullying. Low self-esteem is another one. Internalized anger, behavioral problems, relationship problems, impulsivity, poor executive control, right? Difficulty making decisions, making wise decisions, really processing and thinking through things. You will also have sometimes a very reactive and overreactive fight or flight system. You can also have different parts of the brain that's being impacted negatively by growing up in a family where there's family intimidation. And the longer you experience that intra-family aggression, sometimes we call it that, intra-family aggression, it's within the family, it's amongst the family members, it's likely that you're going to walk away with some kind of trauma, mental health condition, and relationship problem. Doesn't mean there's no hope for you. I don't want you to take it that way, but this is the research saying, that this is a very unhealthy dynamic within these toxic, dysfunctional families. Okay, let me go to the chat box, guys, and then I will go back to this content, and I'll tell you how this impacts you. Jessica J, thank you so much for that. That's so sweet of you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Kay Razy says, it's horrible when you start internalizing it all too. Yes, it is. It is. It is. You internalize all that pain, and it's going to come out at some point, Mama Boom Bam, hello and welcome. Always glad to see you. Says Tamara, great work. Everyone out there, just know you are loved. Thank you so much for that, by the way. Know you are loved and valued in this world. Please never give up on yourself. That is such a humble, loving remark. Thank you for sharing that. I really like that, and I very much agree. Very much agree. Okay, wait a minute. Sorry, guys. Okay. Earthworm JXM says, it's like she knows me. Well, that's good, right? That's good. Because then you can be validated. You know what I mean? And you can look at this and say, from a therapeutic lens, I'm not the only one. So there are actually other people out there who are experiencing this, And I think more people experience this than we really think. We think, we've come into this world believing that family is this loving, unit where everybody gets along. And sometimes it's the very opposite, Sun and Sunflower says, my family was my first bullies. They all knew that I was broken in the home due to domestic violence that my dad did to my mom, had depression at 13 and was bullied at school and was blamed for that. Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that, Sun and Sunflowers. When you're bullied at home and when you are dealing with domestic violence within the home, those are what we consider, I'm sliding. Those are considered risk factors. And risk factors are things that kind of makes life a little bit more difficult for us. Risk factors could be not going to the best schools, growing up with little to no income, having a lot of trauma all around you with no therapists in sight, And so domestic violence and bullying, family intimidation, those are risk factors. And then you go to school and you're dealing with the same thing, And so risk factors can really set us up for failure if we're not careful, Elizabeth says, sometimes family acts like they are helpful, but actually they are not. It's hard to figure it out. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. That's why I always encourage my clients, try to be wise in every decision that you make with your family. Ask yourself, is this okay? And if I take that move, can I handle it? And is it going to stress me out? Is it going to weigh me down? And if my answer is yes, then maybe I need to go around this situation, right? So it is, you're right. It's difficult to deal with. Christina LZ, hello and welcome. Glad to see you. Earthworm JXM says, why do families, she says, she or he, bully sometimes? Well, because sometimes you can have two parents who are very unstable psychologically and emotionally, and they kind of raise their children in a household where relational aggression is normalized, anger is incorrectly identified and managed. There's no coping skills, there's no self-awareness, and there's most definitely no consequences for the behavior. Maybe one day I can do a psychology of criminals so that you can understand why some kids grow up and become criminals over time. For those of you who already know, forensic psychology was my double major in college. It was part of my studying in graduate school and after. So, understanding biology and genes and environment and criminals and forensic psychology is a part of kind of my makeup. So if you want me to do a live chat on the psychology of criminals, let me know, because I will do that so that you can understand how they are made over time. And so the same thing with family bullies. They are made over time. They're not born, they're made over time. And there's a variety of ways that a parent can bring their child, or there's a variety of ways that the environment can impact them to create that bullying, I wish it weren't that way, but it is. Laura Fett, hello and welcome. Good to see you back in tonight's live chat, in a live chat, I should say. Brianne D, thank you for that. I appreciate you. I appreciate the super chat. Thank you. Raymond Vincent Garcia says, family bullying would make a kid's fight or flight or fawn freeze get activated all the time. Yeah, absolutely. Imagine being bullied within a home, being bullied within the family, and there may be other reasons why you're being bullied, right? It could be mom and dad got a divorce and dad wants me to see mom in a bad light. It could be, my sister was put into a institution and she wants me to think that I'm the problem, right? Whatever the case may be, you may be bullied in your family, bullied in your school. You may develop into an adult and be bullied on your job and have very bad adult relationships. And so your fight or flight mode is constantly running like an engine, So it's very, very possible. Very possible. Mariah Shopton, I hope I said that correctly. Welcome. Glad to see you in tonight's live chat. Says, question, I am the youngest and only daughter of 3 kids. My older brothers are narcissistic. The oldest is overt, always needs money. The other is covert and enabled. I left. Am I wrong? I don't know. I wish I could validate that and be like, yes, you're right. You're not wrong. I don't have the details, So ethically, ethically, I do not want to say anything without all the details. But, if they are very clearly problematic and you had to leave for your safety and stability, however you define that, then maybe that's the thing that should have been done, That's a hard one. I'm not going to say yes or no, but I will say if that was the safest and best, route for you to take or route for you to take, you had to do it, right? That's the sad part. Okay, let me keep moving, guys, so we can get back into the content. Mental health mermaid. Oh, I like that. Hello and welcome. Glad to see you in tonight's live chat. Glad to see you on the channel as well. Mental health mermaid says, this happened to me today. I have bipolar disorder 2 and tested positive for COVID. First time. I'm quarantined with my family in Wyoming. They snapped at me today. I called mental health crisis line. Oh boy, that's rough. Right? Because you're under a lot of stress. If you can try your very best to stay out of their space until you're feeling better, that's probably the best thing to do. Bipolar disorder, even though it may be a less intense form of bipolar disorder, it still puts you on this emotional roller coaster, right? And then COVID on top of that, which kind of impacts your mood, on top of having a difficult family, right? So I totally get you. Try to take care of yourself during this time in whatever way you need to. Beatrix, hello and welcome. Glad to see you in tonight's live chat. I haven't seen you in so long. Welcome, and thank you so much for that. I'm glad the topic is helpful. All right, let me get a couple more people in here, guys. And we'll go back to the content wrap up. Beatrix says, when I was 16, my family, particularly my mother, would bully me and talk crap to my other siblings to the point where no one would speak to me or acknowledge me and make me feel separate from them. Yeah, it's horrible. Can we say that it was like pitting one sibling against the other? I absolutely despise that. I hate when it happens. It's one thing for a parent to say, you know what, because I kind of played this role as an adolescent. I was born a psychologist, okay? Because my family would be like, so what do you think of this? What do you think's going on? What should I do? And sometimes my mom would be like, can you believe what Brian did? And I would be like, no. As my mom would talk, I realized she's not coming to me to pit us against each other. She's looking for validation, number one. Number two, she wants to make sure that she's seeing my brother the right way, through the right lens, because Ryan can be very checkered, let me tell you. And she's bringing me into this family dynamic, right? So it's normal, but it's when one parent pits another sibling, two siblings against each other. We call that sibling alienation. You're kind of saying, come over here with me, Bobby, for example, while we talk against your brother Michael over there, And so when you guys come together again as siblings, the relationship is going to feel bad. It's going to feel odd and awkward because this parent is putting the two of you together, So I guess what I'm saying here is there's a difference between the two. Either you're pitting the two kids against each other, or like my mom would do with me, you're just trying to see what I think of the whole thing, So you just have to figure out which one is which, but it's painful when it's sibling alienation, Okay, let me keep going, guys. Yeah, Mental Health Mermaid says, I cannot make my family or anyone else treat me right or with respect. I am so grateful I called the mental health crisis line. I'm not letting anyone bully me off of this. Yeah, I totally agree. I understand. Totally agree. You can't make them, right? All you can do is protect your space, right? Brandy, thanks so much for the other super chat. Really appreciate you sprinkling all your appreciation throughout the chat box. And the rest of you as well. Christina LZ says, I'm constantly reminding, I can't take good decisions. I can't make good decisions. So I am not helped with what I need to prepare for my future as I should. Dad and stepmom all the time. Do you mean, Christina LZ, you were constantly reminded that you can't make a decision, so I am not helped with what I need to prepare for my future? If it's worded that way, then that can be a form of family intimidation, right? Being told you never make a decision, so you don't need to make a decision on that. That can be family intimidation for sure. Yeah, I'm going to take it as that until you correct me if needed. Tammy Nicely says, Tamara, you get forced into learned helplessness and then they pounce. Yeah, sometimes you do. Sometimes you do. You're very, very right. Yes, very right. Okay, just looking for a few more comments because I don't want to leave anybody out. Ronald Zion says shapeshifters are complicit. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, and I don't like shapeshifters. I prefer the authentic person. Just be authentic. If you're authentic with Susu over there and you're authentic with BB over there, then you need to be authentic with the real world. When you go out of the house, when you go to work, just be honest, okay? You don't have to cloak yourself, right? But shapeshifters do it all the time because they have basically a split mind, if you will. And one side of their mind says one thing and the other side says another. And believe it or not, sometimes they themselves have been traumatized. And so the trauma in their world causes them to shift based on the role they're playing, the environment that they're in, the dynamics. It can get really complicated, Ronald Zion. Laura Fitz says, distance from the family bully is the best, or go full no contact is the best solution. Works for me, talking from experience. Yeah, sometimes you have to. I think relationships can be beautiful. I think family can be beautiful, but it's when they become that detrimental weapon in your world, right? You know, they kind of attack you. They, burden you. They make you feel a certain way, make you think a certain way. They may even, we're going to talk about this in just a little bit here, and just talk about it a little bit in a couple minutes. But they can even stir up these negative thought patterns, hence the title of this chat tonight. They can stir up these negative thoughts. So we're going to get into that in just a minute. Pink Tulip, that is such a cute name. Hello and welcome. Good to see you in tonight's live chat, and welcome to the channel. I don't remember seeing you. Pink Tulip says, my father bullied and physically abused me as early as I could remember. He would even tell my younger brother hurtful things to go and repeat to me. I'm in my 40s, excuse me. I'm reading this all wrong. I'm in my 40s, and even with therapy, it still hurts. Yeah, absolutely. Let me just say something, because I just told my client this today, that even when you're in therapy, that doesn't mean that you are going to develop immediate coping skills. That doesn't mean that you're going to feel less pain. That doesn't mean you're going to overcome. Therapy is really like this medium, to help you kind of change over time, grow over time, have a different way to see things, kind of process the pain and heal a little bit over time, So Pink Tulip, my client said the same thing to me. She's like, I'm even in therapy and this still bothers me. And, and I'd explain to her, it's going to bother you for the rest of your life. The issue is, how do I live with this? How do I cope with this in the moment? And how do I cope with it when it's triggered in me again? So keep that in mind. That may be helpful. All right, guys, I'm just scrolling. Liberty Can. I don't agree with this. Liberty Can, hello and welcome to tonight's live chat. Liberty Can says, just stay no contact with everyone. No. Totally get where you're coming from, Liberty Can. I mean, I would say don't do that, because you could be slamming the door on somebody that is going to be the best part of your life. You could be slamming the door on somebody who truly needs you, right? So I would say just stay no contact with the people who have harmed you and made life really difficult for you. I'm going to add that, Liberty Cam. I totally get you, though. Brianne, is that correct? Or Bryn? McDonald, hello and welcome back. I haven't seen you in a while. Good to see you. Says, anytime I get together with my dad's stepson, a significant amount of time is reminiscing on humiliating or painful moments. That they find hilarious. Yeah. Have you ever stopped them? I've been in situations like that where I'm like, okay, I don't think that's funny. And they stop laughing, like, whoops, you know what I mean? So if you haven't already, maybe try that and see what they do. I don't know, but that is not a good experience, is it? No. Fruity Pie ASMR. Hello and welcome to tonight's live chat. Good to see you and welcome to the channel. Fruity Pie ASMR says, I stopped reacting to my mom's hoovering. She just put a water bottle in the fridge that looks like a Lysol can that said kills 100% of demons. Don't try me. She goes back and forth like this. Oh my God. You know, it's like she's trying to be funny, but it's cynical, right? That's a superb example of the Machiavellian parent. You might want to go back and look at that video. Excuse me, guys. But you may want to go back and look at that video. For those of you who want to understand, excuse me, what a Machiavellian parent actually is. And this is a prime example. Prime example. I'm glad you mentioned it. I'm sorry you have to deal with that, but I'm glad you mentioned it because that's exactly what a Machiavellian parent would do. It's not funny, but to them, they think it is. And they run with it, you know? And it's that sadistic edge and those indirect possibilities, right? Yeah, that's the Machiavellian parent for sure. Jill Alcock, I hope I'm saying that correctly. Hello, it has been a while. Welcome back. Thank you so much. I'm doing a lot better than I have been over the past couple of weeks. I've been sick. I had pneumonia over Christmas. I hope you're doing okay, and I hope you're having a good start to the new year. Good to see you. Judith Barrett, you're another one I haven't seen in a while. Hello and welcome. Glad to see you back. Hope you're doing well as well. Lorfit, thank you so much for the super chat. Appreciate you. Okay, you are going to be my final comment. Let's go back to the chat content. Excuse me. Let's go back to the content, and then I'm going to come back to the chat box, and then we'll wrap up. So what happens to you? Well, point it out to me, guys, if this has personally happened to you. But this is the research says is likely to happen. These are really, as I was going through the research on this topic, I was picking and pulling things that I've actually had clinical experience with, so I can then tease it apart for you and walk through this with you. But psychology says there's a variety of ways that family intimidation and bullying can impact you. What I have seen and what the research says is this, that you can have a hypersensitivity over time, and you can kind of develop this over time, a hypersensitivity to the emotional climate of the environment. I'll go back over that. So you can become hyper or oversensitive to the emotional climate of the environment. You can literally sometimes walk into a room and sense almost like a radar, right? You can sense the negative energy in the room. You can feel the emotional climate. And this isn't necessarily a negative thing. I think it's wonderful when you have kind of been kicked into fight or flight mode. You start thinking really well, executive functioning becomes really sharp, and you realize that your intuition is causing you to understand what's going on, you know? I think pieces of that can be a gift. At the same time, if you are overreactive or hyperactive or hyper responsive to a situation where the energy is off or it's not good, then you can kind of lose your stability. You can lose that firm ground that you need, right? When we start becoming more emotional and less cerebral or cognitive, we kind of lose ourselves a little bit. So that can happen if you are hypersensitive or oversensitive to the emotional climate of an environment. And being in a family where you've kind of learned the emotional climate over time is a negative one, you can very much tap into that in various places in your life. Walk into a Walmart and you may find yourself having that experience of Oh, I don't want to be in here. I'm leaving, right? So that can be a vulnerability. There's also this removal of solid family support, removal of solid family support. When you're being intimidated or bullied within your family, right? What does that cause? Well, that causes division, and division is a loss of support. So you don't have that. There's also internalizing and externalizing behaviors. I'm internalizing, so that means I'm going to be anxious, I'm going to be stressed. I may pick my skin, I may pull my hair out, I may not keep up with my hygiene and my routine. I may wear baggy clothes and I may gain weight, right? Because of all these internalizing thoughts and feelings that you have. Externalizing thoughts and feelings could be, I'm going to snap out with the first person who gets in front of me on the highway. I'm going to cuss out my supervisor because I feel like it. I'm going to slam the phone down and tell my mother I hate you. I'm going to go to work and roll my eyes at people at the lunch table because I don't like them, right? So externalizing, everything kind of gets externalized. You may also become the victim of the cumulative effect of the trauma and of the intimidation. Maybe you were highly intimidated as a child. That's one layer. Maybe you were highly intimidated and bullied as an adolescent. That's another layer. Maybe you were intimidated by a boyfriend or a girlfriend that you had when you became an adult. That's another layer. And so the more layers, right, it becomes a cumulative experience, and that weighs on you over time, right? Trust issues, fear of abandonment, loneliness, it all catches up to you, right? Research does suggest that 3 things is likely to happen with individuals who have been in an intimidating family environment where there are family members who are detrimental and harmful. Research suggests 3 important things. I'm going to break this down. 1 is suicidal ideation, suicidal gestures or behaviors, and non-suicidal self-injury. Research suggests that these 3 things are likely to happen, not always, but with some people who are externalizers and internalizers, this can happen, and it's a very normal occurrence, if you will. Suicidal ideation, suicidal threats and behavior, and non-suicidal self-injury. So let me break these down. Suicidal ideation is another way to say thoughts of wanting to kill yourself or thoughts of wanting to take your life, right? Thoughts of wanting to end everything. Kids will usually, if they're having suicidal thoughts, and I do see these kids very often, in my office, I see these kind of kids, I think more than I, want to see, because I like to see kids as happy. But sometimes they're coming from families where there's family bullying. And so their suicidal thoughts would be something like, I had a kiddo a couple months ago that would share this with me. The thought was, I wonder what my grandpap is experiencing. My grandpap died a year ago, he says. He's like, and I wonder if life is better for him than it is for me. And I said to him, how long have you been thinking about that? And he says, I've been thinking about that since his funeral. And I said, I see. Do you want to escape life, or do you just wonder what life is for your grandpap? And so we kind of broke that down. And he says, I just don't want to live sometimes. And he says, I go to bed and I think if I don't wake up tomorrow, I wouldn't have a problem with it. I'd be okay with it. If I got hit by a car trying to get to my house across the street from my school, I wouldn't have a problem with it. So those were suicidal ideation, suicidal thoughts. Other thoughts that you might have would be, nobody would miss me if I left. Another thing would be, suicide isn't painful if I just use this method or use that method. These are all thoughts, right? But sometimes the thought translates into or becomes a suicide gesture or behavior. And so what we mean by that is the thought now becomes a gesture, meaning I'm going to do something that could make it look like I am serious about suicide, right? I once had a client who had engaged in a series of suicidal gestures, right? And it looked like they were serious about ending their life, taking their life. committing a suicide, completing a suicide. There's so many different ways to say this. So that's why I'm giving you different language. But the suicide gesture was intimidating. Why? Because it always looked like she was very close, this person, longtime client a couple of years ago in a residential treatment facility that I was working in. And everything that she did was a gesture. She never completed the suicide. She never caused her own death, but it was always something that would get her very close to it. And she would threaten that. I'm going to do A, B, and C tonight. But she knew that, taking a whole bottle of Advil wasn't going to cause her death. It was maybe going to make her sick and dizzy. But she would always engage in suicidal gestures and behaviors. Now, lastly, before I go back to the chat box and wrap up, there's non-suicidal self-injury. Really what that means is this, that you have an individual who is maybe in the midst of a toxic, intimidating family, a dysfunctional family. They don't necessarily want to die. So what do they do to cope? And this is a very unhealthy way to cope, but for them, it's the only way right now, right? So they cope by cutting their wrists. Sometimes I have kids who are suicidal. Excuse me, let me go back over that. Sometimes I have kids that come into my office to see me who are not having suicidal thoughts, but they are engaging in self-harm. They'll have all these like shallow cuts up their arms, One time when I worked in a psychiatric hospital for kids, I'm going to say back in 2019, 2020, I worked on a unit where the clients there, the patients there were all people under the age of 18 who had attempted a very serious suicide. And this one child comes in, she's 12, she comes in, sits before me, and she looks like a typical kid. But as we start talking, and I asked her, I says, sometimes we don't want to say that we're struggling in front of our parents. So, Mom, do you mind if I kind of dismiss you to the waiting room? And she's like, yeah. And I close the door, sit back down, I look at the kid and I say, have you ever had any thoughts of wanting to take your life, wanting to end your life, kill yourself? Have you had any urges or desires to harm yourself, not die, but harm yourself? And she says, yes. The process, Miss Tamara, is this, that I do this. And so she takes her sweatshirt off and she shows me a lot. I'm going to say 100 or so. Shallow cuts on her right arm, shallow cuts on her left arm, shallow cuts all down her chest and her neck. And I said, it's interesting you can hide this. She says, makeup, wearing turtlenecks, wearing sweatshirts, all of that hides it from my mom. But her self-harm was non-suicidal. She didn't want to die. She just coped in a very negative way, and that was self-harm. Research in psychology suggests that if you grow up in a family where there's tons and tons of family intimidation and bullying, that this is one part of the puzzle that you could experience. You may be hypersensitive to the emotional climate of the environment instead of being suicidal, and that's great. Some people experience this very differently, You may be an internalizer while Bill over there may be an externalizer. Nevertheless, these are all difficult, very unhealthy places that you can be pushed into when your family is a bully. It's a lot, right, guys? Join me tomorrow, if you will. If you want to engage further in these kind of conversations. Tomorrow, I'm going to talk about post-separation abuse. So let's say you've gone no contact. You've, slowed down being in communication with your family. You've put up a boundary or a defense wall. Maybe the holidays was horrible for you last month and you just want to get away. Sometimes we want to get away, but guess what? That other individual isn't ready for us to get away, and they can cause a lot of problems. So join me tomorrow on my live chat. We'll talk further. All right, guys, let me go to the chat box, and then we can definitely wrap up. Mr. Frederick, hello. Good to see you back. Welcome. Thank you so much, Brianne. Grateful for you as well. You guys are awesome on this channel. Franciphile, I know I messed it up. I'm so sorry. Says, how do you even confront a shapeshifter without sounding like you're overly sensitive? For them, you are always the shapeshifter with depression. Well, that's a good point. That's a good point. Sometimes they do accuse you of being overly sensitive. And honestly, I would have the disposition of, I don't care what you think, you're the problem. And I'm going to go over here away from you because you are the problem. And that's basically how I would maybe deal with that. I would also, if the shape shifter, excuse me, is impacting everybody else's view of you within the family, then you can maybe very calmly just correct their view, or be the total opposite of what they think you are. There's other ways that you can kind of manage these people, but they're difficult. They are. Jill Alcock says, oh my God, post-separation abuse. I'm going through that. Okay, join me tomorrow. We're going to talk about it. The Judge's Bailiff, hello and welcome. Good to see you back. Ooh, I hit the wrong button. Sorry, guys. I do this every live chat. Tammy Nicely says, there was cash to be had by me being killed of, and I mean a life assurance that I had to cash in and spend. Ooh. Is that an analogy, Tammy Nicely, or is that something you're sharing happened to you? I don't know how to perceive that. I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm not sure, Tammy. Maybe correct me if I'm misinterpreting that. Jill Alcock says, where do I find post-separation abuse tomorrow? Come back to the channel. Make sure you guys hit the subscribe button and the bell button, because every time I post a live chat, you're going to get a notification that says she's live. You know what I mean? Or you're going to get a 30-minute reminder. Join me tomorrow live. We're going to talk about post-separation abuse because it's so very real. It is, and it's awful. Nancy R., yes. Aren't you glad that there's a community that can share? It's so very helpful. Welcome to tonight's live chat, by the way, if I didn't welcome you. Angela Ava, hello and welcome. I hope I said that correctly. Angela Ava says, this is literally what I'm dealing with right now. A family member that is spreading malicious lies about me and threatened to try to ruin my reputation with my doctor now. Wow. Yeah. Family bullies know that if they can get to the people in your life and change their perception of you, then that's power. Orlando's relating to this topic. Excuse me. The good glow. Hello and welcome. Glad to see you back in tonight's chat. Glad to see you back in the chat. The good glow says, hello, Tamara. I found that oftentimes bullies like turning into victims when someone stands up to them. Yeah, I agree. Totally agree. She goes on to say, or the good glow, because I don't know if you're female or male, so I apologize for that, says, you can't be both, so choose one. Yeah, I totally get that. You guys know about the drama triangle that I always write out for you guys. It's the triangle where there's a victim, there's a persecutor, which is the one who's being blamed as being the problem, and then there's a rescuer. This is what family bullies like to do. They create this triangle that puts them in the position of victim at all times, Caitlin W. wanted to make sure that I said hello to you and welcome to tonight's live chat. All right, guys, I'm scrolling. I don't want to miss anyone. Is it Valerian still? Hello and welcome. Glad to see you in tonight's live chat, and welcome. I don't remember seeing you. Valerian still says, hi, I feel like I may have been a dark empath type towards my sons due to having them very young and being abused by their dad, who met me when I was 16. He was 28. Oh my God. How can I make it up to them? Excuse me. It's the kind of situation where I want to be like, you need to be in therapy first. That's what I say, to kind of unravel that, right? Because the age difference is an illegal age difference, right? In my state, it's like 3 to 4 years older is okay, with a child who's 14. But if you're 16, although in many states that's a consenting age, as we call it, it's still a very big age, difference, right? And so that in and of itself is traumatizing. And you would need to be with a therapist that can tease that apart for you. Maybe do what we call a trauma timeline, where we go back and see where your own trauma began and how it left you, and then how your life affected your children. So my best advice is to seek out a really good trauma therapist and work through it that way. And all you can do is humbly say to your sons, I had to grow, I had to learn, and made a ton of mistakes, and just be very honest with them. But I think you need to go through the process of treatment for sure, if you aren't already. Jay Nash says, Tamara, you help many people. Thank you so much for that. And I truly hope so. Thank you. That's why I like being on here with you guys, because I feel like you guys are very much worth the time and the energy. Okay. M.N. Odell, hello and welcome. Good to see you. I'm just scrolling because I know I missed a lot of comments, and I'm going to wrap up, guys. Nurse Lenny, hello. Blessings back to you, and good to have you. Good to see you. The Judge's Bailiff says, my youngest brother literally went from being my closest sibling to becoming a bully and stonewall me since mom passed away. He called to tell me we're no longer family for no reason. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Sometimes, and I'm sorry that's happening to you, sometimes, and I learned this in my family 5 years ago when my grandmother, who was everything to my family, and I mean everything to us. I have a big family on my mother's side. I also have a big family on my dad's side, but we're talking about my mom's side. And when my grandmother unexpectedly passed away in 2020, let me tell you, the energy of the family shifted, and I've learned over time in my professional work, in my personal life, that sometimes when somebody passes away, it's like opening up the floodgates, because then you start seeing all the devils. You start seeing the claws come out. You start seeing the people who are not really for you, right? And so that shifts and changes the dynamic in a very, very big way, I'm so sorry you had to go through that. It's very, very difficult. B. Millie, hopefully I said that correctly. Hello and welcome. Welcome to the channel as well. Glad to see you. B. Millie says, a cousin casually accused someone of child molestation and kept it up for 20 years to say she's just playing. She ended up shot by their child and charged. Oh, that's awful. I wonder, is it in the news? If it's in the news, I'm going to Google it, because that should be in the news for sure. I'm sorry to hear that. That's awful. Jeremy Robinson, hello and welcome. Good to see you tonight. Jerry Robinson says, the person that said that you should ride or die for your family no matter what sounds like my family. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. No. If you're going to divorce somebody who's a headache to you, that's hurting you, that's neglecting you, that's manipulating you, then you should be able to walk away from the family member who does the same thing. I don't see what the difference is between the relationships, So no. Mm-mm. Should you give your family a humble chance to change? Yes. Should you give that relationship all you have? Most likely. But if they're going against you, no. Captain Barbosa, I hope I said that correctly. Hello and welcome. Good to see you. Says, I'm learning, I'm learning so much listening to you. This is high level knowledge. Thank you so much. I'm glad to hear that. That's awesome. Thank you. All right, let me keep going, guys. A couple more and we're going to sign off. Suncita, I feel like that's Spanish. Suncita. Hello, welcome. Good to see you. Welcome to the channel as well. Suncita says, yep, my sister is either a covert narc or BPD, more likely covert narc, thanks to my mom and enabling dad. Ooh. Yeah. What does Dr. Romani say all the time? Because to me, she's like the expert on narcissism, We were both at a conference in Washington, D.C. last March, and I was so busy with my publishing company that I didn't get a chance to see her. And I'm like trying to hurry up and get to her she did like a workshop, and I said to one of my coworkers, I just want to step out for 5 minutes. I need a minute, and I'm walking down the hallway of the hotel, and I step in, and I'm able to like just stand there and, kind of scan the audience. I'm looking at different ones, and Dr. Ramani is talking about the narcissist. And, what I love that she said at that conference, and she made it so very clear. She says, you have to keep in mind the narcissists are made. They're not born, they're made. And so to your point, Sancita, which if you haven't seen Dr. Ramani live, you may want to see if you can do that. I think it's well worth the time and the energy to go do that. And I'm not sure, you might be able to, there's like a symposium. If you're interested, let me know. I'll post it in the description box or the comment section for you. I think you can go to the Psychotherapy Network Symposium, and I think they're having Dr. Ramani once again. I'm not going to be there, but she will definitely be there, and a bunch of other fantastic coworkers. So let me know if you're interested. I can give you that information if you're interested in going. But the key here, Sancita, is narcissists are made. They are not really born. So with parents who are like, your parents, it's possible that they kind of molded and shifted your sibling over time. Let me highlight something that I said at the very beginning, which is suboptimal parenting. Suboptimal parenting, which means that it is very negative, very detrimental parenting, and it kind of causes a configuration of bad personality over time. It shapes and molds that individual into who they are, and it's a very, very, very bad place to be. It really is. Okay, let me just, a couple more comments, guys, literally just 2 or 3, and then we're going to wrap up. Solo, hello and welcome. Good to see you. Solo says, how to deal with, ? Become tough on outside and soft inside. Ooh, okay, can you break that down for me? I will answer that if you put it in the comment section. All right. Goodness, I'm so behind. Cheyenne Morgan, hello and welcome. I'm doing well. I hope you're doing well. Hope you're having a good weekend. Good to see you. Weather fluctuations. Oh my God, I need to steal that. That's an awesome screen name. Hello and welcome. Good to see you. Says, reading all of your posts make me want to make you all friends, my tribe. Yeah. Like you all would understand why I am. Did you finish that? No, you did ... Yeah. I agree. I don't know how I've been blessed with such an awesome audience. I don't get it other than it is a blessing. One last comment. Half the battle knowing is, hello and welcome. Good to see you in tonight's live chat. Says, families can be tough. Let your strength shine. Let their tears symbolize a pleading apology. Man, that was good. Trust. They don't feel good about what they are doing. I love the very beginning of that. I'm not sure I can agree that, they don't feel good about what they're doing because some are cold-hearted, cynical, but half the battle knowing is, that's so fantastically written. Thank you for sharing that. I like it a lot. Ronald Zion says, these people make you feel like you're on a witness stand being cross-examined. They really do. Yes, they do. Yep. One last person, okay? Trauma survivor. I don't know if I said hello to you, so welcome. Glad to see you. A trauma survivor says, I was raised by a narcissist dad. I escaped that and went to my extended family, but I feel like I've been denied of the same home, life my sibling had, all because he was raised by them and I wasn't. Yeah, I think you posted this on another live chat of mine. I think it was 2 live chats ago. So you may want to go back because I think I did break that down for you just a little bit. So you're my last one. Guys, I love you so much. Thank you for all your support, kind comments, reinforcement, validation. And thank you for being so, so wonderful to the other people on this channel. I really and truly appreciate you. I hope you have a really good night. I will see you if you want to join me tomorrow about post-separation abuse. We're going to delve in just a little bit on that as well. So have a wonderful Friday. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.